Welcome to Traders Pulse office hours for February 4th, 2025. I'm Tom Hartman, marketing manager here at Traders Pulse, joined by Mike Christensen, our co-founder and CSO, along with Jonathan Wage, our founder and CEO. We're here to help you get the most out of Traders Pulse and answer your questions about automating your trades. Your insights and feedback are what help us continue improving the platform. So we truly appreciate your participation. So let's dive in. Guys, this week has been, I think, the most amount of support tickets I've ever seen come in all at once. That was pretty crazy. I love that. I love to see that activity. I'm looking forward to hearing all about the behind the scenes stuff over the next weeks. But people are liking it. The majority of people are loving our platform. They want to see more from us. When what we get is a bunch of like, this is great, but this could be better. This is great, but this could be better. I feel pretty good, especially since John and Mike are the ones who have to actually do it.
Among our small but growing engineering team, absolutely. But yeah, anytime we can get our customers in general to be open and sort of transparent about what they'd like to see from us, the better. There's nothing worse than running a company where your customers like say, okay, everything's good, but then not tell you what can be improved. So that feedback is necessary, and we're very driven by feedback here.
Yeah, I thought it might be nice to just to let people know, like if you're watching Office Hours and you've never actually seen any of our other shows, we put a lot of content because it matters to us that we not only create a platform that's very useful for you for bridging your trades to your broker, but that you also become a better trader. I mean, we can make you a better trader, but we can put out information and put out details that that can help you make better choices because we know that moving from, let's say, the non-automated mindset to the automated mindset requires you to rejigger the way that you're thinking. To that end, we did have a couple of people who were asking about over the last couple of weeks about talking on Discord and that sort of thing about AI trading, and so we took a stab at that last Thursday, where Mike and I on Blueprint we just went over, hey, how might we take an image, a screenshot of a chart, and then send that to an AI bot for it to tell us if it's a bullish or bearish trade. Just practicing for us making decisions purely based on what AI tells us. They tell me where to be, that's where I'm going to be. So we might as well learn how to do that. So I thought let's just take a look at the quick clip from last Thursday about our last AI blueprint.
One other area to explore here is, so we kind of covered like multi-time frames, that it could come from a trading window. Chase had made the point that you could use the TradingView image API, which I'm not aware that there's a public API there. So I think it would probably still be an issue.
That's right.
To try to use that API. It might violate terms of service, but there are so many tools out there to generate chart images on real-time data. In theory, you could even spin up your own environment locally, use Polygon's WebSocket APIs to get pricing on the whole universe of stocks, or at least the ones that you want to follow. You could then construct the charts using Python charting yourself, and that just generates an image, which then gets sent over to OpenAI, which then you get a signal for. So there is a way to maybe even make this a little more comprehensive, where you've got the image generation already in place. You don't even need to rely on TradingView. You just need to get market data and then generate an image with all the indicators that you need, maybe even coupled with outside data that you're pulling from separate APIs. So I definitely think that there's a big realm of all kinds of different ways to construct a process in place here that still generates reliable charts without necessarily relying on TradingView.
All right, so you can go take a look at that video on Blueprint on the Traders Pulse YouTube channel. And if you have anything else you want us to try out, here was an example of AI signals, but it could be anything. Indicators that you're really used to, strategies you'd like to see convert, anything at all. Just let us know, and if it's something that's in our wheelhouse and we think people might be interested in doing it, we'll certainly do so. Moving on to the questions that we've had over the last week, let's just go ahead and jump right in. We have a question here from Brewbank, who asks, hi, relatively new to this, so appreciate any help or insight. Is it feasible to do an OCO bracket order with a trailing stop and a stop loss?
It can't be both.
You'd
A
have to make
bracket
a choice.
order is 3 orders: the entry and then 2 legs. One of them is the take profit, and one of them is the stop loss. And it can be a regular stop loss. It's just like a stop market order, or it could be a trailing stop market order, and it effectively works the same. It's just the stop price is moving up or down as the price moves. And then as soon as that stop price triggers, it converts it to a market order.
Now, one thing you could do is trigger 2 alerts and effectively 2 separate bracket orders, one with a fixed stop loss and then the other with a trailing stop loss. So that would allow you to split the order up in a way in which it's executed slightly differently. But you'd have to send those 2 alerts independently and sort of with 2 separate settings.
Got it. All right, next up, someone was asking about the trade plan. So, will the trade plan display all the relevant information for why a trade failed? I'm trying to get a sense of how comprehensive it's supposed to be.
Yeah, I mean, it will tell you why we didn't take a trade. So, for example, if you send a signal to exit an open position, but there's no open position to exit, then you would see a message indicating that. Or if we calculated a trade plan and we sent an order to the broker, and the broker responded with a failure message, then we're going to show you what the broker said on why the order wasn't created. So all the information that you see within the trade when it executes is all the information we have, and it's all the information that the broker responds with. Now, there could be scenarios where the broker fails in an even more unexpected way, and they don't give us a message on why it failed. It could just be a internal server error on their side, even though that's rare. But in those cases, you would just need to reach out to the broker, give them the order ID if there is one, and they can look into why it failed.
Yeah, and it's very useful to know that most of the time, or a lot of the time, when we get a support message in, what we're doing is going to the same tool that you're using in order to get the information from the back end, and we'll look at the trade plan. Just to make a note, some people think that, well, we have access to all kinds of other extra tools and all kinds of other extra information, and that it behooves you to go ahead and contact us
Yeah.
because we can get information that you don't have. That's not the case.
And I think a lot of times too, they want us to reach out to the broker on their behalf, but brokers don't allow us to ask questions about order IDs that are not my orders, because we don't have a special support channel to go through. We call their customer support just like everyone else does, and they identify who we are based on my personal account number. And then after that, those support reps at the broker are only allowed to look up orders that are associated with the account that was validated when you first started to call. So I'd love a backdoor support channel so we could see more information, but we don't have that at the moment.
Yeah, and I'd also like to mention this, that inside of on the screen where you're seeing your trade, at the bottom of the page, and I'm embarrassed because I know it took me a while before I realized this. The bottom of the page, you have a snapshot of what your subscription settings were at the time, right? So sometimes people are debugging an issue, or they only look into a trade afterwards. They made some changes within their subscriptions, and now they're trying to like backtrack and go, hey, what happened? Why did this trade behave in one particular way and another trade later on behave in a different way? And so you can come take a look down here to say, hey, maybe I didn't have side swapping on for this position, and that's why it behaved differently than something later on. You also have within the your audit logs, you have here more information as to what's going on in your account. Sometimes here it's when you added a new broker or changed the account or anything like that. Sometimes there's just account level stuff that's happening over here that you can also use to help debug what's going on. But these are the tools we're using, right? These are
And
the
it's
tools we're using in order to figure it out.
and it's funny, both of those things were added originally because of what you just described. A customer would be like, "Hey, I reached out about this trade. I'm not sure what happened," and we had no way to see like what the settings were at the time the trade was executed, and we had no ability to see if they had changed some settings. So we added that functionality so that we could have a paper trail of everything that happened to answer questions for customers, but also so that they can answer the questions themselves.
This next question comes from Thomas, who asked a general question that actually I'm surprised I hadn't heard anyone ask before, and that would be, what would be the benefit of coding your JSON message directly into your strategy versus relying on the payload in the alert tab? So in TradingView specifically, when you are creating the alert, um, if you're creating the alert and it's tied to a particular event for that indicator or strategy, you'll often have a field there that allows you to put the JSON message that traders post as expected in order to execute your trade. But depending on how your indicator or strategy is created, you might be able to either hard code that within the code of the script or have settings within your script that has the fields that are available that you could put in the JSON message. And so I know someone was asking in the support ticket, hey, what am I, they had a missed signal or something like that failed on the TradingView side, and they were wondering, hey, if I moved it from the message that's in the create alert box to the message that's within the indicator, will that make it more reliable because I'm going closer to the source code? So there's no benefit in that way, because no matter what you're doing in TradingView, you are using the create alert dialog box in order to create the signal afterwards. So that works in one way. But there are benefits to having the script have more granular control over the JSON messages that are there. We can go on and on about it, but essentially, when you're using just the one box in the create alert dialog, you can't fine tune, let's say, differences between long and short positions. So maybe you want your long positions to always have more risk than your short ones. Well, then you can't make that decision. It also implies a certain way that your script has been developed in order to be able to replace the placeholders in the correct way. So I like the flexibility of having the alert fields be put inside of my indicator and strategy. There's no downside. And so if you have access to the code and someone is able to do that for you, or you're able to do it for yourself, I think it's worthwhile to do.
I think it's easier to set up too for the end user. If you're sharing your strategy, they don't have to copy and paste JSON or anything. All they have to do is input the webhook URL and they get the exact right JSON for all the different order scenarios.
Right. And maybe one other thing to add to this is that we are always trying to make improvements to our system. There could be changes to the JSON properties in the future that are just harder to go back and recode if you have a bunch of these scripts and alerts already set up. But it is easier to edit an alert, change the JSON property, and click save for all of the alerts that you're currently running. So having the JSON payload in these settings tends to be a little bit more efficient in terms of it being future compatible.
There's also the advantage of, and we've gone over this on previous Blueprint episodes, where you can create your own placeholders. And there are indicators and strategies that created their own placeholders. And so you're not trying to, you're not like pigeonholed into just the placeholders that are available for TradingView. Luxalgo has a rich library of placeholders that they've developed specifically for their script. And they even have like calculations that you can do and certain conditions that you can do in order to mix and match. And so it can really open up a wide world. Now you end up in a situation where if you decide you're not using Luxalgo, now you're using a different system, well, then those placeholders are no longer available. But hey, different shoes, different problems.
Yeah. Something I've seen, Sander Blue, who's in the chat, what he's done in every unique scenario where he triggers an entry or an exit, it might be because of several different criteria, and he can put in the JSON which criteria actually triggered it, so he knows which part of his code triggered the buy.
Right. Yeah, that makes sense. Okay, so let me see here. There's a question here by Richard Cantu. Is there a setting that will cancel and exit all open orders at the same time, at a set time? For example, if I want to exit all positions at 4:50 p.m. every day, am I able to do that in my subscription settings? Mike, we're getting this question all the time now.
I think it's a good feature request. It is something we'd like to consider creating an improvement for in the software, where you can choose a time for everything to close out. At the moment, though, we've helped solve this problem through a custom Pine script that we put together. What was that, 3-4 weeks ago, Tom? And so
Yeah.
I've shared that in the chat here, but we'll share that in the show notes as well in YouTube. Essentially, there's an example strategy in our documentation called scheduled alerts, which allows you to just create an alert on your chart at that specific time, and it will send off an exit command for that symbol. And that would be the current way in which you could send off a scheduled time to close out your positions.
It'd be really cool if in the future, I'm guessing this is what you're thinking, to enhance the trading window functionality, to have some kind of extra setting to close positions at the end of the trading window.
Yep, that's exactly what I was thinking. We just enhance the trading window functionality so that it chooses when to close everything out.
There's one in particular, someone, they thought that was the default behavior of the trading window, and they were like, the message was like, "Hey, my position is still open afterwards." Like, literally nothing anywhere ever said that your position would be closed. And how crazy would it be if we just started closing everyone's trades automatically?
Yeah,
But
especially at the end of the day, if you wanted to hold overnight. Yeah, we're definitely not in the business of trying to make decisions on your behalf. So that would be really bad.
I've seen other things, I never thought this, but I've seen other people make the same assumption that, say you're already in a position from a strategy and you change your subscription settings to add a take profit or a stop loss, that it would affect positions retroactively.
right.
And that's an assumption that I guess I never thought about. It's interesting to think about how we could improve that to make that more clear, that the settings are only affecting trades as they come through, not retroactively.
Fascinating. All right. So this question I had earlier last week: if I normally use action sell to close a long position as opposed to exit, but I panic and close my long position manually right before the signal comes through, will I then be entered into a short position?
It depends on your settings. If you allow shorts, then yes, and you control that with the sides setting in the subscription settings. And sides has an option of both bullish or bearish. So if your sides was set to bullish only, that would mean that when the sell signal comes in, it's going to see that there's no open position, and it's not going to try to exit something that doesn't exist. And because you don't allow bearish positions, it won't enter a new short position on the other side. But if you do allow both sides, then it will see that there's no open long bullish position to exit, and it will enter a new bearish position.
This dovetails into that previous question that we had, where the difference between the create alert dialog message box for your JSON message versus custom within your script. This question came up with somebody who was using a strategy where they just had the one box, and it was basically side swapping all the time. Like there was no exit order. It would just sell in order to close the long position and long to close the sell. And so they panicked and they were selling out, and then they were in the position afterwards. So when you only have the one area, there's nothing you can do about that.
If you use the strategy settings where it includes the sentiment field, it would be handled in that case, because if it was a exit only order in TradingView, then it would send action equals sell and sentiment of flat, which would indicate to traders post that this is a sell signal, but we don't want to go short. We only want to flatten the current long position. If the order in TradingView was an order that swaps sides, then the action would be sell and the sentiment would be short, indicating that the sell signal is intended to go from long to short, not from long to flat.
Okay. This is another one that comes through quite a bit. I'm gonna have to bring it up. We promised people we would bring up the popular feature requests, and that is, I like to be able to trade manually on TradingView, but have my trades in my brokerage account mirrored across other accounts. And along the same lines, is there any way to use Traders Post to copy my trades I am manually executing via TradingView? Seems like it would be a great extension of their business. I don't want to use group trade on Tradeovate. I have my indicators on TradingView, and I'm more comfortable there. Notorious.
Yeah, we'd like to do this in the future. We are exploring this opportunity where essentially you connect your broker and we listen to your trades and replicate them out. This is similar to what we're seeing with other competitors. However, in the meantime, the only real way to do this at the moment would be to create price alerts on your chart that trigger an event to send that trade through a webhook URL. So very quickly on my chart, I could right click, set a price alert, and then put in the message for buy or sell. It's going to take a little extra time to set that trade up, obviously, but you could have your entry and your exit commands already kind of set aside in a notepad, paste them in real quick, and then hit OK. And then the moment that price triggers across the line, it's going to execute that signal off to Traders Post, which would then trade out to any subscriptions that are tied to that strategy. That's the best way I'm aware of. Can you guys think of any other ways you might think of?
I think that's pretty much it. It's a lot easier if it's obviously just an automated strategy. You can subscribe to it multiple times within Traders Post and connect it to each brokerage account. But I do that manually today for some of my manual trading. I'll use trend lines and just set up an alert on that line or a moving average, stuff like that.
Sure. So you might have a price alert there. Another way to do it would be to have TradingView on the left and then Traders Post on the right on the same screen. And with the enhancements we're about ready to deploy in several weeks from now, John, you'll have to tell us when that release is coming. But we have made some significant improvements into what we call a strategy dashboard that will allow you to manage your positions from a main primary account, and then all the other subscribed accounts will get those trades as well. So we are trying to kind of enhance the trading experience from Traders Post so that you could, in theory, watch the charts on TradingView and then simultaneously manage a position on Traders Post at the same time.
I was just thinking about the convoluted way that I would do it, and that's whenever I do a trade with my exchange, I get an email confirming the trade. So then I could just route that email and have it automatically generate the signal necessary.
You could do that. I mean, you could definitely custom code something. There are ways to custom code it for sure, where you could run a headless TradingView, but that would again be against TradingView's terms of service. Please don't hurt me, TradingView. We know that's not allowed. But yeah, if emails, that would be interesting. I mean, it's like theoretically possible, but man, relying on email, ooh.
Yeah,
scary.
Especially if it's delayed.
Yeah.
Some brokers provide real-time signals and updates. You could, in theory, try to subscribe that event to sort of an emulated environment. Like, for example, you could try to emulate a device within a Linux environment to receive the notifications from like TradeAvate, for example, that come through over a service worker. This gets really complicated, but like in theory, you could try to tap into those alerts, but no, we want to make better improvements. We know how difficult this is. So we're going to make some product improvements on our side to make this more reliable of a process.
What I find fascinating is that, sorry?
I was just going to say that, yeah, that opens up the copy trading for copying individual orders. But it'll also open up in the future the ability to have portfolio level copying, which is kind of the same concept, but instead of copying orders in real time, you're kind of copying the state of the portfolio at the end of the day.
Right. Agreed.
All right. Next up, by default, does TradingView assume side swapping for a strategy? I'm wondering what quantity is generated when using the strategy.order.contracts placeholder.
That's a wide open question. There are so many different strategies out there that may or may not have side swapping baked into them. Many of the default ones from TradingView do, though, like the Bollinger Band strategy or the RSI strategy made by TradingView. Those are considered like side swapping strategies.
Well, so
I think it depends on how it's coded, right? The strategy dot entry, strategy dot exit, like just depends on how the strategy is coded.
Right.
So if it's a strategy.entry, then it is assuming side swapping.
But the contract amount, though, that would be based on the number of contracts you have set in your strategy settings.
Right,
Well,
but if it's
in
something
Make.
that swaps sides, then the quantity will be doubled basically
it'll
because
adjust
it's
it.
enough to exit the open and enter the same amount on the other side.
That's correct. Yeah.
But if you do the strategy.order, then it'll take your quantity specifically and it'll just trade that. And even if it's not enough to reverse the position, like that, it'll just reduce, the long position by that number of contracts.
I think this is fairly easy to see if you look at the number of contracts on the chart. You'll see, like, let's say it starts with 1 and then it shows the sell and it shows -2. Well, that would indicate that they're using the contract amount to offset the position and it's side swapping. But if it's always showing -1, then it's expecting that position would have been exited prior to reversing.
At one point, I should probably do this because I actually haven't seen anyone else really doing this. For me in PineScript, I always program like a debugging option for the alerts, where not for the alerts, but for the trades that are printed on the chart, so that what you see on the chart gets replaced with what the alert would have been at the time. And so I could just see, okay, this is what actually would have been sent, and then I can see all the numbers. I'm not guessing as to what's going on over there.
Sure. Well, I want to back up a little bit here, Tom. Danny had posted this question about the first question that he had sent earlier about the trailing stop loss. Do you need to add this to the strategy and rules within Traders Post as well? It depends. It's worth covering here that you always have a choice between putting your rules in the JSON message and using what we call the signal, if you will. The JSON message is your signal, but if you prefer to put it in your strategy settings, you can do that instead. There's always this kind of hierarchy between the two, where you can make a choice as to whether it should be in the JSON or whether it should be in your strategy settings. So as Tom is showing here, when it comes to the stop loss, if you go to the stop loss section, you can choose to use the signal stop loss, or you can have it predefined here to a stop loss type of trailing stop and the percentage. And you can turn off that toggle to ignore whatever it says in the stop loss property in JSON.
Yeah. So then this is the one that would be used. In this case, would be 5% stop loss with a stop market order.
And of course, you need to double check when it comes to the strategy settings or the JSON message, you need to confirm that this particular order type is available with the broker that you've selected for the subscription. It's not always possible to do a trailing stop with all brokers.
Correct. All right.
Richard Cantu has another good follow-up question here. Is there any kind of setup wizard coming? The first experience was a bit confusing, especially since many settings are across the same strategies. The answer is yes, we're working on a design for what we might be calling workflows that kind of steps you through the process of creating your strategy. But we've got some work to do to improve that, and it's definitely not on the release cycle anytime soon. It's going to take us some time to work on that.
And just to explain the difference for anyone else who's interested, the strategy settings are like the defaults that get used every time you create a subscription. So if, say, you gave someone else access to your strategy, when they subscribe to it, the settings that are defined on the strategy are going to be the defaults when you create a subscription. And then anytime you edit a subscription after the fact, the values in the subscription take precedence over the values in the strategy. So the strategy is kind of like the template that's used to create subscriptions, and you can connect a strategy to many different brokers. So you might have different settings for different subscriptions. Like, say you have the same strategy, but in your Roth IRA, you're using a 5% stop loss versus a 10% or something like that.
Agreed. Our friend Aventura Trader has asked, is there any way to copy trade my own automated trades across several accounts? And the answer is yes. You just create one strategy, send your webhook URLs to that strategy, and subscribe as many brokers as you want to that, up to your account limits, of course, for your subscription. But we do have several customers out there that are copy trading across all of their accounts and effectively sending one signal to trade 5 or 10 different accounts at the same time.
All right. TradingView is having their leap competition. Is there a way to automatically trade strategies with a leap competition? There
Unfortunately, no. Yeah,
I've tried it.
Doesn't have an API.
That's like in their paper broker.
Mm-mm.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, there's no way to do it.
Yeah,
I thought it would be fun
really
to.
hacky, but
Yeah. If there's a way for us to figure out a way of doing that, I don't know. I'm gonna pretend to be a user. We should just contact TradingView and let them give us a way of automated trading on that. But because it would be fun, but I don't know. There's a lot of things that need to cross for that to occur.
I think we need to have our own competition soon. We've talked about doing that at some point, some kind of paper trading competition.
Yeah, I'm all for it. I think we should probably be coupling something like that with the release of our analytics package, which will help everyone keep track of the P&L for their accounts. And I think one great way to set that competition is not just what were your overall absolute returns, but what was the risk in between. This is what I liked about the competition environment on Quantopian. It wasn't enough just to get 700% returns over a 5-year period. The question that always came down to was, what was the risk that you took to get there? Because if anybody else is interested in using this, I don't think they may have the tolerance for pain that you do. They're not interested in 90% drawdowns. So very interested in establishing a competitive environment, but also kind of pushing towards well-established risk metrics.
Mike always hurts my feelings with my trading styles.
Not at all. You take really small positions and you go all in on them. I like it. I think you're the exception to this rule, because many people are always looking for the 90% win rate strategies. Tom is like the 10%, but when he gets the 10th trade, it just knocks out of the park.
All right. I have an open position with bracketed take profit and stop loss. I send another order that is now pending. If I then send a cancel request to remove the pending order, will it also cancel the take profit and stop loss from the first order?
Yes, it will. Fortunately, we don't have, it's something that I'd like to improve, but right now we don't have the ability to target which orders you want to cancel for the ticker. It basically blanket cancels any of the open orders associated with the ticker and the webhook.
Can I edit a pending order in the Traders Post interface after it's been
not via Traders Post, but via your broker. If they support replacing orders, you could do it there.
What I sometimes do is I'll have Traders Post connected to, let's say, my Tradovate broker. And then when the automated trades come through, I have Tradovate connected to TradingView as well. So I see those trades come through, they show up on the chart, and I can modify the orders from that screen if I want to.
All right.
I'd love to, we have the capability in the API backend of Traders Post to edit. Different brokers call it different things. Sometimes it's called replacing orders. Sometimes it's editing. And the behavior is wildly different as well. Some brokers will actually cancel the existing order and replace it with a new one. Mm-hmm. And some brokers actually edit the broker like in place. So you don't actually get a new order ID when you edit it. But I'd like to have, it'd be nice if we had an edit button on every order, open order row in Traders Post that just pops up a form. And you're only allowed to edit certain fields as well. I think quantity and the price. You can't change time and force or anything like that. You're only allowed to change a limited amount of fields.
Got it.
If I add a quantity parameter to a trailing stop exit order, will that immediately exit the partial amount that I put in the quantity and apply the remaining trailing stop to the remaining position? So I send an exit order with a trailing stop, but the quantity is not the full quantity of the position that's there. Will it partially exit one position with the exit and then trail the rest of it?
No, it'd create one order for a trailing stop for the quantity that you specified. Okay. So if you had a long position of 10 and you sent a trailing stop to exit 5, then you would have one trailing stop order for 5.
Got it. And then final question about back testing. Hi, everyone. How real is the testing on the paper broker? I didn't trust the numbers on TradingView strategy tester, and now the paper testing on Traders Post, the numbers just seem too good. And while I have no problem with testing it with real money and losing that money, I'm afraid of the short selling going negative. What do you recommend? The TLDR, I'm afraid of short selling going too bad, and I'm wondering how legit the paper testing on Traders Post is.
Yeah, it's a great question. In general, it doesn't really matter what paper account or backtesting environment you use, you're always going to be subjected to this same problem of historical results don't necessarily translate to future results. The Traders Post environment is definitely not a very accurate environment. It doesn't have a slippage model. It doesn't account for commissions, particularly in futures. And so as you get a trade, it's really just taking whatever the market price at that time was and assuming that you would have been filled at that price. There's lots of reasons that slippage and commission can completely destroy any performance you have, especially if you're trading on lower time frames. So the suggestion would be, in general, to try to do as long of a walk forward test as possible to confirm that all this is playing out and working well, or use a broker paper environment that tends to account for things like commission and slippage. And the final step would be, if you're going to put live capital in front of it, just try to trade the smallest position size possible for a long time. You could trade M and Q contracts and risk a lot less than going right into a couple of NQ contracts, which are obviously tons more risk.
It always plagues me to wonder if the strategy, let's say the TradingView strategy tester says that this is a poor performing strategy, could it actually be a high performance strategy? Or is the discrepancy ever
go the
that
other way
much?
around? Yeah. That's a good question. I don't know if I've ever thought about it that way before. There's always that off chance that you just get lucky and you end up on this streak that each trade that gets picked up by your strategy happens to be very positive for you. In general, I think this is a good reason to try to diversify your approach into several different strategies, because it's tough to tell, which one's going to work and which one's not.
Sorry, if it was easy, everyone would be doing it. All right, folks. That's it for the questions we had for this week's office hours. Or if there's anything else in the chat, Mike will let me know. But while that is happening, I want to let you guys know that if you have any questions, please feel free to post them on YouTube, on Discord, send us support ticket messages. We're always happy to answer everything that we can. The questions are getting a lot now. They're really ramping up. So I guess if you want your question to ask, you're gonna have to, come up with a really interesting one, something on an edge case, maybe a lot of exclamation points. That'll work. That works a lot on John. Is there any questions, Mike, that showed up inside of the chat?
I think, Aventura Trader asked this last question here. I have a strategy that uses a partial take profit, but it closes my live stop loss when a partial take profit is hit. Is there a way to code in TradingView a new stop loss when the partial is hit? In theory, you could code this into PineScript and wait for that type of event, and then you'd have to trigger that alert separately to account for that.
Yeah, I think if you sent that partial take profit, it has to cancel the existing stop loss for the full quantity in order to be able to exit some of the quantity partially. And then some amount of time after that partial exit, you would have to send yet another signal to Traders Post to re-add a stop loss with a stop price that's somewhere below the current price.
Right.
Excellent. We're always happy to hear from you guys. I think you could see in everyone's eyes when there's a feature request, and we're like, oh, we would love that feature request as well. Like, we're also grinding our teeth. We want it as well. So we're also trying to make the product better for you. We'll be back next Tuesday for office hours for more questions. But until then, happy trading, folks.
See you guys.